It was a rainy evening in Lagos, the kind of rain that soaks your bones even when you're standing under shelter. The streets were loud with the honks of downfall buses, people shouting in Yoruba and Pidgin, and the hum of generators fighting to be heard. Deep inside Mushin, a narrow street called Ochkona Lane carried the smell of wet sand, roasted corn, and palm oil. That was where Amoka lived, with her younger brother, Chism. Amoka was only 23, but life had aged her face. After the death of their parents in a ghastly motor accident on the Benin Expressway, Amoka became mother and father to Chism. She dropped out of university, abandoned her dreams of becoming a nurse, and started selling fried yam and akara by the roadside just to keep the two of them alive. She had a bright smile for her customers, but when she got home, her face would fall into the silence of worry. Chism had a condition. Something in his blood. The doctors at LUTH called it leukemia. Amoka didn't fully understand what it meant, but she knew it was eating her brother from the inside. The treatment cost millions, and every time she held the prescription paper, she felt as if she was holding a death sentence. Still, she kept praying and hustling, sometimes sleeping just 3 hours a night. One day, she got a message on her WhatsApp. It was from someone she didn't know. The profile picture showed a luxury car, tinted windows, gold wristwatch, and the name, Chief Dollar. At first, she ignored it. But when he messaged again the next day, asking to meet and promising to help her with any amount she needed, her heart beat faster. God, I beg, she whispered to herself that night. If this is a test, I know won't fail. But if this not trap, protect me. Still, the thought of Chism coughing blood again kept pushing her to consider it. She met Chief Dollar at a hotel in Lekki Phase 1. It was like a different world, clean roads, tall buildings, flowers by the gate. When she entered the lobby, the air smelled of perfume and foreign money. Chief was sitting in a corner, wearing native agbada and dark shades, even though it was nighttime. His smile was wide, but his eyes never smiled. You fine pass your pictures, he said in a deep voice. Sit down. She sat, trembling. They talked. Or rather, he talked. She listened. He told her he knew people in Oso Rock. That he gave money to girls like her. That all she had to do was spend one night with him, and she would walk away with 5 million naira. Amoka didn't speak. She just nodded, her mind full of Chism's dying eyes and the sound of his weak laughter. She told herself it was just one night. But it wasn't. That night would change everything. She woke up the next morning alone in a strange bed. Her body ached, her mouth was dry. When she looked around, her clothes were gone, and there was a small brown envelope on the table. Inside was cash, fresh, new notes. But also, there was a USB drive. When she left the hotel, she felt like a ghost. Something inside her had shifted. But she had money now. She rushed to the hospital, paid for Chism's chemo. The doctor smiled at her for the first time in weeks. And for a short while, things got better. Chism started eating again. He even laughed. But then the messages started again. From a new number. You belong to me now, it said. She ignored it at first. But then she saw her own video. She was on the bed. Naked. Drugged. Recorded. Her hands started shaking. She dropped her phone and ran outside. Her legs couldn't carry her far, but she just ran, barefoot, until she collapsed near a gutter. That night, she didn't sleep. The next morning, Chief called. You think I do good for nothing, he said. You think say I be charity. I go ruin your life if you no come see me. She blocked the number. But new ones kept calling. Sometimes, unknown numbers would send the video to her again. Then one day, a clip was sent to her pastor. Another to her cousin in Abuja. The shame was spreading. She started seeing faces in the crowd that looked too familiar. Was that man in the downfall looking at her too long? Was that woman whispering about her? The worst part was, Chisholm didn't know. But he noticed his sister had changed. She stopped laughing. She barely spoke. Sometimes he would catch her staring into space, tears running down her cheeks. Then, things took another turn. One night, as she was returning home from the market, a black Prado Jeep pulled up beside her. Two men in suits stepped out. Before she could scream, they grabbed her and pulled her inside. They drove her to a mansion in Banana Island. Chief was there, wearing the same smile. "You think you can run from me," he said. Amoka looked at him, broken but not defeated. "What do you want from me?" she asked. He laughed. "I want loyalty. You will work for me now. I have men, powerful men. You bring girls. You obey me. Or your video go reach your brother's school, your church, everywhere. You understand?" She didn't speak. Chief stepped closer. "Your brother's treatment, no me pay am. Without me, he go die." Tears dropped from her eyes. "God punish you," she whispered. He slapped her. "You go regret that." She was locked in a room for 2 days. No food. No light. Only fear. But Amoka was stronger than she looked. On the third night, she escaped. She waited till the guard slept, used the hairpin to open the window, jumped over the wall, and ran into the street barefoot. She begged a Kiki to take her to her aunt's house in Suralia. She stayed there, crying for hours. Her aunt, Mama Ebo, was a prayer warrior. When she heard everything, she fell on her knees and started praying in tongues. Amoka didn't know what to do next. The police wouldn't help. She had no proof. The man was rich and powerful. Then she made a decision. She called a journalist she once met at the hospital. His name was Fola. She told him everything. She gave him the USB. The videos. The voice notes. Everything. Fola was afraid at first, but he promised to help. They planned together. Quietly. Carefully. 2 weeks later, the story hit the internet. Anonymous whistleblower. A powerful Lagos billionaire involved in a blackmail and exploitation ring. Hidden camera footage. Voice recordings. The internet went mad. But so did Chief. He came after her with everything. Thugs broke into her aunt's house. Luckily, they were not home. Their small apartment was destroyed. They had to run. From Suralia to Ibadan. From Ibadan to Ilorin. Amoka became a shadow. But the case had started gaining attention. Women came forward. More stories. More evidence. The EFCC got involved. Then DSS. Then everything changed. But just when it seemed like justice would come, Chisholm collapsed. The hospital called. The cancer had returned, worse than before. They needed money. Again. Amoka sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand. He smiled up at her. "Sis. I dey try. I won live." She nodded, but inside she was dying. Then, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Come back," the message said. "One more night. 10 million. Her hands trembled. She looked at Chisholm. She looked at the message. Her soul screamed. She stood up, left the room, and walked into the dark hallway. Then she picked up her phone. And whispered, "Send the address." The screen faded to black. The rain returned that night. Not the soft kind that sings you to sleep. No. This one was angry, pounding the roof, flooding gutters, washing secrets into the streets. Amoka walked alone through the wet silence, her slippers soaked, her heart heavier than it had ever been. The address they sent led her to an unfinished building in Victoria Island. No security. No noise. Just the sound of water dripping from broken cement blocks. Her phone had no signal. The darkness swallowed her. She stepped inside. Chief was already waiting. He wore a white kaftan, the kind rich men wore when they wanted to pretend they were humble. He smiled, but this time it was different. There was no victory in his eyes. Only anger. "You came," he said. Amoka didn't reply. She stood there, shaking, her arms folded tight over her chest. Chief walked around her slowly, like a predator sizing its prey. "I told you," he whispered, "you belong to me." Amoka swallowed hard. "I'm not here to beg," she said. "I just want the money. Then I'll disappear forever." Chief chuckled. "You don't get it, do you? You're already mine. Money can't free you. Nothing can." He moved closer, reached for her face, but this time, Amoka stepped back. From the side of her bag, she pulled out a small device, a recorder. Hidden. Live. Chief's eyes widened. He rushed forward, trying to grab it, but suddenly, the doors slammed open. Flashlights. Boots. Shouts. Freeze. DSS. Men in black flooded the room. Chief screamed, tried to run, but 2 officers tackled him to the ground. He thrashed, cursed, kicked, but it was too late. The device Amoka carried had broadcasted everything. The DSS had been listening. Amoka stood frozen. Tears fell, not from fear, but from relief. It was over. Or so she thought. A week later, Amoka sat beside Chisholm again at the hospital. The boy was smiling weakly. He was eating jollof rice. His cheeks were full again. The doctors said his condition had stabilized. Somehow, after the arrest and media attention, a foreign NGO stepped in and covered the rest of his treatment. Miracles do happen. That's what Mama Ebo said when she called Amoka crying with joy. Amoka tried to smile too. But inside her heart, something still felt broken. Even though Chief was behind bars, the scars on her soul refused to heal. She had flashbacks. She would wake up at night, sweating, gasping for breath. Every time a man raised his voice near her, she flinched. Trust was now a foreign thing. But she kept moving. She joined a small support group for women who had suffered the same thing. She started telling her story. Not just on the internet, but in schools, churches, even small gatherings. Her voice trembled at first. But with time, she became stronger. People began to know her name. Not as a victim, but as a warrior. She started learning again. Took online courses in counseling and mental health. Helped other girls who were going through abuse and blackmail. Her fire returned, but it was not the fire of anger, it was the fire of purpose. Then one day, a letter arrived. It came from a prison in Abuja. It was from Chief. At first, she wanted to burn it. But something told her to open it. Inside was a short message, written in shaking handwriting. "I lost everything. My money. My name. My friends. You took it all. But even now, I still think of that night. You broke me. I hope you can live with what you've done." Amoka laughed bitterly. Live with what she'd done. She looked around, at her brother, who was alive. At the girls she'd helped. At the mirror, where her eyes no longer looked empty. Yes, she could live with what she'd done. But could he? Still, the threats never completely stopped. Anonymous messages. Strange cars following her. Men in suits asking questions that didn't feel safe. One day, Fola, the journalist, called her in panic. "Amoka," he said, "they are digging into your past. The same people behind Chief. He wasn't walking alone. Amoka's heart dropped. You mean there's more? Yes, he whispered. And they're coming. She dropped the phone, ran to the window. Outside, a black car was parked across the road. No movement. Just waiting. Her blood turned cold. Later that night, someone knocked on her door. Not once. Not twice. But 3 times. Slow. Loud. She tiptoed to the peephole. No one. She locked every bolt. But the next morning, there was an envelope at her doorstep. Inside, a photo of Chisholm, at school. Taken from a distance. On the back, you started a war. Are you ready to finish it? Amoka froze. The battle wasn't over. Not yet. Her eyes narrowed. Her hands clenched. She would not run this time. She would not hide. She would fight. Because now she wasn't just a girl from Mushin. She was a voice. A storm. A threat. And she had nothing left to lose. As she looked out the window, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. A man's voice. Low. Calm. Deadly. We know what you did. We know where you live. You think this is over? She didn't reply. She just ended the call. Then turned to her laptop. She clicked record and began speaking. My name is Amoka. I'm not afraid of you. And somewhere in the darkness, someone was listening. I'm planning. The night air was cold in Ilorin. A kind of cold that didn't touch the skin, but crept into the heart. Amoka stayed up late, sitting in the small wooden chair beside her brother's bed. Chisholm was sleeping peacefully, one arm tucked under his head. For once, he looked like a child again, not a patient. But Amoka couldn't sleep. The envelope, the photos, the voice on the phone, everything was pressing on her chest like a stone. They were watching her. They were coming. She picked up her phone and typed a message to Fola. If anything happens to me or Chisholm, expose everything. I don't care anymore. He replied 1 minute later. I'm already on it. Stay strong. But even with those words, the fear didn't leave her. It wrapped itself around her like smoke. That night, she had a dream. She was standing on 3rd Mainland Bridge, alone, in the rain. She could hear Chisholm calling her from far away, but no matter how she ran, she couldn't reach him. Suddenly, someone pushed her from behind, and she fell into the water, sinking deeper and deeper. She woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The next morning, she made a decision. She packed her bag, collected all her evidence, every voice recording, every photo, every screenshot, and every memory card. She gave them to Mama Ebo, who had joined them in Ilorin, and said, "If I don't return in 3 days, release everything online. Post it. Share it. Ban the word if you have to." Mama Ebo wept. "My daughter, you don't have to fight alone." "I'm not," Amoka whispered. "But I must face them." She traveled back to Lagos. Disguised. Wore a wig. Dressed like a cleaner. Took public buses, changed routes 5 times. Just to reach a place where no one would suspect her. She didn't go back to Mushin. She didn't even go to Fola. She went to a house in Parkview Estate, Ikoyi. It belonged to someone Chief once mentioned in passing during that first night, the name Odigo. She remembered it because of the way he said it, with fear. She believed that Odigo was behind everything. And she was right. The house had high walls, electric fence, and security cameras. But Amoka was patient. She watched from a distance, waited for the right time. She saw him. A tall man. Bald. Dressed like a politician. Entering with 2 mobile police escorts. Laughing. That laugh stayed in her ears all day. She found his driver later that night, while he smoked outside by the fence. She approached him with a trembling hand and a shaky voice. "Brothers, I beg. I get small information wey fit help your oga." The man turned. "What kind info?" Amoka handed him a brown envelope with some fake papers and one real photo from Chief's USB. The man blinked. Looked up. "Who you be?" Amoka smiled. "Just tell your oga say I dey come for am." She turned and walked into the darkness. By morning, her photo had spread again. But this time, not as a victim. Now, they called her whistleblower, enemy, and disgrace. She got a call from Fola. "Amoka, this thing don't pass our level. They are planning something. I just heard from someone in government. They want to silence you before this goes international." Amoka wasn't surprised. But she wasn't ready to run again. She went to a cyber cafe in Suralia and uploaded everything she had, anonymously, on multiple online drives. Then she sent the links to journalists, bloggers, activists. She went home and waited. 2 nights later, her door was kicked open. Men rushed in. No words. No shouting. Just violence. They blindfolded her. Dragged her into a car. She didn't know where they took her. When the blindfold was removed, she was inside a dark warehouse. Water leaked from the roof. She could hear rats. She could smell fear. Then she saw him. Odegu. Tall. Silent. Wearing a white kaftan, just like Chief. He looked at her for a long time, then shook his head. "You should have kept quiet," he said. Amoka didn't speak. "You think this country belongs to people like you?" he asked. "Do you know how many girls we've passed through? You're nothing." Still, Amoka didn't speak. "You destroyed Chief. But he was a child. I'm the real power." He stepped closer. "Tell me. Why did you fight back?" Amoka's voice was soft, but strong. "Because someone had to." Odegu paused. Then slapped her. Her face turned sharply, but she looked back up at him, eyes blazing. "You can beat me. Kill me. But I'm not afraid anymore." Suddenly, there was a noise. A loud bang. The door burst open. DSS. Nobody move. Shots fired into the air. Odegu tried to run, but the agents tackled him. Someone had tipped them off. Amoka was rushed out of the warehouse, blood on her lips, bruises on her arms. But alive. Alive. 3 months later, Amoka stood before a crowd. A women's conference in Abuja. She wore a simple dress, hair tied back, a microphone in her hand. "I was just a girl from Mushin," she said. "I didn't have money. I didn't have power. But I had my voice. And that was enough." The crowd clapped. Some cried. Some shouted. But even as she smiled, even as she held Chisholm's hand beside her on stage, she knew the fight was not over. Because evil never dies quietly. It hides. It waits. And somewhere, in a high-rise office or a dark hotel room, someone else was watching her. Someone who hadn't been caught. Someone who had more power. And more hunger. And as the sun set that evening, and Amoka looked out the window of her hotel room, her phone buzzed once again. Unknown number. Message. "We are many. And we never forget." Her hands trembled slightly. Then she breathed in deeply, held Chisholm's hand tighter, and whispered. "Then I never stopped fighting." It had been 6 months. 6 long months since that night in the warehouse. Since Odegu was dragged out in chains. Since Amoka's face was shown on every screen, the girl who fought back. But peace. No. Peace never came. Fame had its own price. Now, Everywhere she went, people whispered her name. Some in admiration, others in anger. Powerful men hated her, politicians avoided her, and online trolls attacked her day and night. But the worst part? The silence. There were no more direct threats. No black cars. No calls. Nothing. And that scared her more than anything else. Because she knew they hadn't given up. They were simply watching. Waiting. Waiting for her to relax. Waiting for her to lose guard. One afternoon, she got a message from Fola. Amoka. We need to talk. I found something. She met him at a small cafe in Lekki, near the lagoon. He looked thinner, tired, his beard unkempt. What happened? She asked. He slid his phone across the table. It was a video. Old. Grainy. But real. In it, Odigu was sitting with two men, unknown faces, wearing suits. They were speaking in code, but the words were chilling. Even if I fall, others will continue. This thing is bigger than me. It goes deep. Deep into the very top. Amoka leaned back. The top, she asked. Fuller nodded. Government. Army. Oil companies. Banks. Even international partners. These men don't just exploit girls, Amoka. They control everything. And you? You've become a problem they can't ignore anymore. Amoka's chest tightened. She thought the storm was over. But it had just begun. That night, Chisholm had a seizure. Worse than ever before. He was rushed to the emergency ward in Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Machines beeped, nurses shouted, and Amoka stood by helplessly, watching her brother struggle to breathe. She cried. Not just because of the pain. But because she knew they had done this. Someone had tampered with his medication. She found the empty packet later. It was fake. A warning. A cruel, silent warning. She sat beside his hospital bed and whispered. I will not bow. If you want to take me, take me. But leave him out of it. The only reply was the slow, weak sound of Chisholm's breathing. 3 days later, a man visited her. Well dressed. Calm. Rich smell of imported perfume. He introduced himself only as Mr. Kolu. He didn't offer a seat. He just stood in her doorway. You've made enough noise, he said softly. The men you're fighting. They've been patient. But patience runs out. Amoka looked him in the eye. I'm not afraid of you. He smiled sadly. Should be. Because we don't want to destroy you. Not yet. We want to use you. She blinked. What? You have influence now. People believe you. We'll fund your NGO. We'll give you platforms. Grants. International media. But in return, you shut your mouth. You stop digging. You speak only when we say you can. Silence. Then Amoka laughed. A bitter, tired laugh. You want to buy me? No, he said. We want to own you. Just like the others. He dropped a white envelope on the table. Thick. Heavy. She didn't touch it. I'll think about it, she whispered. He nodded and left. But the moment the door closed, she grabbed the envelope and threw it into the fire. The flames ate it quickly, like the hunger of a soul too tired to pretend. She started digging again. Harder this time. With Fola, with other survivors, with hacked files and whistleblowers. They created a secret network. Late-night Zoom calls. Encrypted messages. Hidden phones. They began to uncover the real truth. Girls trafficked out of Nigeria, some as far as Dubai and Malaysia. Fake charities acting as cover. Powerful names connected, senators, generals, foreign investors. And at the center, a foundation called the Harvest Group. Very clean. Very legal. But beneath it, a pipeline of exploitation, silence, and wealth. Amoka knew this was it. The final battle. She organized a press conference. Huge one. At Freedom Park. She would expose everything. But the night before, while rehearsing her speech, she heard something. Footsteps. Outside her window. She rushed to look, nothing. Just the wind. She turned around, her laptop was gone. Snatched. She ran outside, but saw only taillights disappearing into the dark. They had stolen everything. Her files. Her documents. Her proof. All gone. Her hands shook. Her throat dried up. They had taken it all. But they had made one mistake. They forgot Amoka never kept her truth in only one place. The next morning, she walked onto that stage, in front of cameras, journalists, and curious onlookers. No notes. No laptop. Just her voice. She told her story again, clear, steady, burning. She called out names. She showed faces. And then, she held up one thing. A flash drive. This, she said, contains the truth. And I've already sent copies to 6 countries. If anything happens to me, it will go viral. Gasps. Cheers. Anger. But deep in the crowd, she saw him. Mr. Kolu. He didn't smile this time. He just raised his phone, made a call, and walked away. That night, her safe house was attacked. They burned it. Everything gone. But she and Chisholm weren't inside. They had moved hours before. Thanks to Fola. They went into hiding. Deep. Far from Lagos. Somewhere in Osun. No phones. No noise. Just trees, wind, and silence. But Amoka didn't stop. She kept recording voice notes. Kept sending messages. Kept fighting. Because she knew, this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every girl who had been used. Every child who had been silenced. Every voice buried under power and money. One day, this story would explode. But not yet. Not tonight. Tonight, she lay beside Chisholm under the stars. He was better now. Laughing. Eating bread and beans. Asking silly questions. And for a moment, just a moment, Amoka smiled. Then her burner phone buzzed. A message. Just 2 words. We know. Her smile faded. The fire returned. The battle was still on. And the war had only just begun. Amoka hadn't slept in 2 nights. In the small abandoned building where she and Chisholm hid, somewhere deep in Osun State, every sound outside felt like danger. A snapping branch. A distant bike. The whistle of wind through the rusted zinc roof. She checked the burner phone again. No new messages. But the last one still haunted her. We know. They knew where she was. Or at least, they wanted her to believe they did. Fuller had warned her the Harvest Group was far from finished. The men at the top were now scared. But scared men were more dangerous than silent ones. They had tried everything, bribes, threats, violence. Now they were going for her mind. Her fear. Her faith. But they didn't understand something. Amoka was not the same girl they met that night at Chief's house. She had become something else. She had become a storm. Chisholm's recovery was slow. But steady. He no longer shook in his sleep. No more seizures. No more fake medication. He smiled more often. And that smile became her reason to keep going. At night, when the fear crept back into her chest, she would watch him breathe. Inhale. Exhale. And she would whisper, "You will live. I will make sure of it. Even if I don't." One morning, a strange car stopped on the dusty road outside the compound. Amoka froze. She grabbed Chisholm. Hid him under the trapdoor she'd created under the floorboards. Footsteps approached. A knock on the wood. Soft. Polite. She moved quietly to the door, holding a kitchen knife behind her back. "Who is it?" she called. A pause. Then a voice replied. "It's me. Mama Ebo." Amoka opened the door slowly, and there she was. Wrapped in Ankara, sweating under the sun, holding a heavy bag and a phone with a cracked screen. Tears filled Amoka's eyes as she hugged her. "How did you find me?" "I didn't," Mama Ebo said. "Fuller did. But he's in trouble. Big trouble." Fuller had been arrested. Charged with false publication. Conspiracy. Possession of illegal data. They were calling him a cybercriminal. A hacker. A national threat. But Amoka knew the truth. They were silencing him. She didn't have time to waste. She left Chisholm with Mama Ebo and traveled back to Abuja, secretly. Disguised again. Always watching over her shoulder. She met with an underground group of young journalists and tech activists. People who had heard her story. People who believed her. They called themselves The Signal. With their help, she started something new. A full online leak. A map of the network. A digital trail. From Nigeria to Dubai. From Lagos to London. And this time, it was not anonymous. It was branded with her full name. Amoka Chidiogo Ikena. She was no longer hiding. She was daring them. "Come and face me." 3 days later, they did. She was walking down a quiet street in Garki, Abuja, when 2 men in suits blocked her path. No words. Just a black SUV waiting by the corner. She ran. Through the back streets. Past hawkers and Okada men. Through dust and sweat and noise. One of the men caught her arm. She twisted, elbowed him, kept running. People started shouting. Wedding day happened. She ran into a small market and disappeared between stalls. But the fear followed her. They were getting desperate. And desperate people kill. That night, she got a call. A different number. Unknown voice. Deep. Calm. Nigerian accent, but polished. "Amoka," the voice said, "we know what you're doing. And it ends tonight. If you love your brother, leave this country. Leave quietly. You won't get another chance." She swallowed. "I won't run." The voice laughed softly. "You think this is a movie? This is Nigeria. The real Nigeria. Nobody wins against the system." The line went dead. Her hands trembled. But only for a moment. Then she picked up her phone and made the most dangerous decision of her life. She went live. Online. With her full face. And she spoke. "My name is Amoka Chidiogo Ikena. You have tried to kill me. You have tried to buy me. You threatened my brother, my friends, my life. But I will not stop. I will not run. And if anything happens to me, the world will know who did it." Within hours, it had 1.5 million views. By morning, every news outlet was covering it. International ones too. They couldn't silence her now. Not without making her a martyr. But what they couldn't destroy, they would try to expose. They started releasing false stories. Leaked fake photos. Amoka caught with foreign sponsor. Amoka used child sickness to raise money. Amoka linked to criminal ring in Benin. But it didn't work. Because the people had seen too much. Too many victims came forward. Too many women spoke up. Amoka wasn't just a girl with a voice anymore. She was a movement. A revolution. And then, the most unexpected thing happened. One of the men from the Harvest Group, a former insider, contacted her. His name was Gideon. He wanted to talk. He wanted to confess. But he was scared. They had tried to kill him too. She arranged a secret meeting in Enugu. In an abandoned factory. He showed up with a bag full of documents. Flight tickets. Payment logs. Photos. Even a video of one of the highest political officers in the country, caught in the act with a girl who couldn't have been older than 13. Amoka's hands shook as she watched. Gideon whispered. If you post this, they'll burn the country. She looked up at him. Then maybe it needs to burn. That night, she sent the video to the Signal. And told them. Wait 3 days. If I don't return, post it. Then she turned off her phone and disappeared into the darkness. She had a meeting. One final meeting with someone higher than anyone she'd ever faced. Someone whose name had never appeared in the files, but who sat at the very top of it all. A man known only as the Bishop. And as she approached the gate of the silent mansion in the outskirts of Calabar, heart pounding, fist clenched. She knew this would end one of 2 ways. With justice or with death. But either way, she was ready. The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. Not even the chirping of birds. Just silence, thick like smoke. Amoka stood at the gate. Her heart drummed in her ears. Every instinct told her to turn back. But she stepped forward. The guard let her in. No questions. No greetings. He already knew who she was. The inside of the compound was massive. Palm trees stood like soldiers. Security cameras followed her every move. The floor was tiled with imported marble, and the air smelled like money, old money, blood money. At the end of the long hallway stood him. The Bishop. Tall, dark skin, silver beard, expensive white kaftan, and the calmness of a man who had destroyed lives without blinking. Welcome, Amoka, he said, his voice deep and smooth. You've come far. She didn't speak. She just looked him in the eye. I'm not here to greet you, she said. I'm here for the truth. He smiled faintly and poured himself a glass of palm wine. You already have the truth, he said. But you don't understand it. She crossed her arms. Then explain it to me. He leaned on his walking stick and stared out through the glass wall overlooking a private lake. Do you know what happens when you break a system? He asked. It doesn't die. It mutates. She stepped forward. You used girls. Children. You trafficked them. Sold them. He didn't deny it. Instead, he said something worse. We saved them. In our own way. Gave them food, shelter, even luxury. Without us, they would have died in the gutters. Amoka shook with rage. You think abuse is charity? No, he replied softly. I think control is survival. Then he turned and looked at her. You could join us. Do you know how many movements we funded? How many revolutions we created and ended? He took out a tablet and played a short clip. It was Chisholm. Sleeping. Peacefully. In a room she didn't recognize. Her heart dropped. What have you done? He raised a hand. He's fine. For now. But if this war continues, you may never see him again. Amoka felt her knees wobble. Her mouth went dry. It was happening again. The same trap. Give up, or lose everything. But this time, she smiled. Because this time, she was ready. You made a mistake, she said, slowly. You think I came alone. The bishop frowned. What? Amoka pulled out a small black device from her bra, the hidden mic, still blinking red. This entire conversation was streamed live. Over 2 million people are watching right now, including Interpol. The bishop froze. The room changed. The guards moved toward her. But before they could touch her, explosions shook the compound. Tear gas. Screaming. Helicopters overhead. It was the signal. And the police. And the press. A coordinated attack. Just as planned. Amoka dropped to the floor as the glass shattered above her. She covered her head while boots stomped in. The bishop was shouting. But this time, no one was listening to him. They were listening to her. Chisholm was rescued that night. Safe. Untouched. Fuller was released the next day. The story went international. UN investigations were launched. Powerful names were arrested. Bank accounts frozen. For the first time in her life, Amoka breathed without fear. She stood in front of a massive crowd at Tafuwa Balewa Square. Cameras pointed at her. Flags waved. Mothers wept. She didn't need a speech. She just said one thing. We will never be silent again. The cheers shook the sky. But deep in a dark room in London, a man watched the footage. He turned off the screen, sipped his tea, and made a phone call. Plan B, he said. Are we moving on the girl? The voice on the other end asked. He paused. No. Let her shine. Let her feel safe. Then, we'll take everything. He hung up. On the table beside him was a folder. On the folder. Project Phoenix. Target, Amoka Chidiogo Ikena. And so, the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. 3 months later, the world knew her name. Amoka Chidiogo Ikena. She was on the cover of magazines. Invited to conferences. Her story was turned into documentaries. Young girls were shot with her picture. They called her Sister Courage. But fame was a strange thing. It looked like peace on the surface. But underneath, it was just another kind of prison. She no longer moved freely. Her phone was always tracked. Security followed her everywhere. She couldn't even go to the market without a camera flashing in her face. She missed Lagos. She missed Mama Ebo's jollof rice. She missed walking down the road like a normal girl, barefoot if she wanted, wind in her scarf. She missed being invisible. But there was no going back. Not after what she'd started. Because Project Phoenix had begun. And she didn't even know it yet. She was in Nairobi, attending a global human rights forum, when the message came. It was from Fola. A voice note. Short. Breathless. Urgent. Amoka. I don't know how to explain this, but there's something wrong. My systems, someone's been in our files. The bishop, he had backups. Not just of the girls, but of you. She froze. The message ended. She called back. No answer. Again. Still nothing. Her stomach twisted. Later that night, another message came, this time, a video. It was Fola. Bound to a chair. Bleeding. A voice off-screen said. You thought the truth would set you free. The truth is just another kind of weapon. You pointed it at us. Now we'll point it at you. Then it cut to black. She ran. She disappeared from the hotel. Changed her look. Burnt her SIM card. Used emergency contacts she had hoped she'd never need. She had one mission now, find Fola. Save him. But it wasn't just about Fola anymore. The video had shown her something else. A document. A single page flashed behind him for just a second. It had her name on it. And under it, the words: target profile, compromise protocol, initiate scandal sequence. They were coming to destroy her from within. They weren't just trying to kill her now. They were going to make the world hate her. The next day, the smear campaign began. News headlines: Amoka Ikene funded by Terror Network. Secret affairs, leaked messages between Amoka and foreign operatives. Was her brother ever sick? Fake interviews appeared. Twisted photos. Even a woman claiming to be her former roommate accused her of stealing money meant for victims. And the worst part: people started to believe it. The same crowd that once cheered her name began to doubt. She saw it in their eyes. In the comments. In the silence of friends who used to fight beside her. Chisholm was still safe. Mama Ebo had taken him to a village in Cameroon under a different name. But Amoka? She was now on the run again. Not just from powerful men, but from a world that had once lifted her up and now wanted to drag her down. She fled to Ghana. Then to Benin. Everywhere she went, someone recognized her face. And behind every corner, another trap waited. One night in a quiet fishing village near Wida, she met a stranger. A young man named Zubairu. He was a fisherman's son. Soft-spoken. Calm. Intelligent. But what caught her heart was something deeper. He didn't care about her fame. He didn't ask about her story. He just let her be. For the first time in a long time, she laughed. Real laughter. He called her Adebi, not Amoka. It made her feel human again. She spent days hiding in his small hut by the sea, healing. He told her stories of the ocean. She told him nothing of hers. Not yet. But the world had not forgotten her. And her enemies had not stopped hunting. One morning, Zubairu came back from the market with fear in his eyes. They were asking about you, he said. Who? Men in suits. Not from here. They had photos. She knew it was time to leave. But Zubairu grabbed her hand. I don't care who you are. But I'm not letting you run alone. She shook her head. This life is fire, Zubairu. If you walk into it, it will burn you too. He looked at her with calm eyes. Then let it burn. At least I'll burn with purpose. Tears filled her eyes. No one had ever said that to her. Not even Fola. Not even herself. They escaped that night. Together. On foot. Through the forest. No phones. No money. Just faith. Amoka told him everything. The truth about the bishop. The girls. The files. The enemies. Zubairu didn't flinch. He just said, then we'll find Fola. And we'll finish what you started. But finishing it meant returning to Nigeria. Where she was now labeled a criminal. A traitor. An enemy of the state. She crossed the border in disguise. Avoided checkpoints. Slept under bridges. Ate roadside puff-puff and groundnut. And finally, she found him. Fuller. Alive. Weak. But breathing. Hidden by an old tech contact tip in the heart of Ibadan. She hugged him for a long time. He cried. I thought they killed you, he whispered. Not yet, she smiled. Then her eyes turned cold. Now it's our turn. They had one chance left. The bishop was gone, but the new leaders were worse. And Project Phoenix. It wasn't just about her. It was about controlling the next generation. A digital system that could track activists from birth. Erase data. Replace facts with lies. Fuller had cracked part of the code before they caught him. Amoka had to finish it. They would expose Project Phoenix. But it meant going back to the one place she feared the most. Abuja. The heart of the system. The place where her war began. As she stared out the window of the bus taking her north, Zubairu beside her, Fola resting under a blanket, her heart beat with both fear and fire. Because she knew. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the soul of the nation. And the shadows were gathering. But so was the storm. And her name still had power. She whispered to herself. Let them come. I am Amoka Chidiogo Ikena. And I am not finished. Abuja. The city looked brighter than she remembered. Too bright. Fake bright. Neon signs, polished buildings, tinted SUVs, endless sirens, but underneath it all was rot. Deep, invisible rot. It smelled like power and fear. Amoka stepped off the bus like a ghost. No one recognized her anymore. Not with the hijab covering her hair, the burnt scar makeup on her cheek, the limp she faked. But inside, she was sharper than ever. Zubairu stayed close, watching everything. His eyes scanned like a soldier's, quiet, alert. Fola was weak but focused. He had the hard drive with him, the one with part of Project Phoenix's blueprint. They had to plug it into the right server, then upload the files to 3 secure international nodes. If it worked, the whole world would see what Phoenix really was. And if it failed, all of them would vanish forever. Their target was inside the National Tech Development Hub, a grey glass building near Metoma. Clean on the outside. Rotten inside. That was where the Phoenix database was stored, guarded, encrypted, and hidden in plain sight. They needed an insider. And they had one. Her name was Rita. She used to be a junior tech analyst in one of Fola's volunteer labs before she joined government service. Rita was smart. But she was scared. When Amoka met her in a cramped cafe near Gaki, Rita looked around twice before sitting. I shouldn't be doing this, she said, voice shaking. You already are, Amoka replied. So let's finish it. Rita handed them a visitor access badge, hidden inside a bag of puff-puff. You have 40 minutes before the scan resets, she said. Once you're in, don't stop. Thank you, Amoka said. Rita looked at her, almost in tears. You're still a hero to us, she whispered. No, Amoka said quietly. I'm just a survivor. They entered the building like shadows. Zubairu posed as a maintenance worker. Fola stayed in the van outside, feeding instructions through a tiny earpiece. Amoka moved fast. Hallway. Elevator. Security scan. Data room. They reached the terminal. It took Fola less than 2 minutes to bypass the firewall. And then, they saw it. Project Phoenix in full. It wasn't just a tracking system. It was a digital weapon. The software could edit live news. Wipe birth records. Fabricate criminal charges. Turn the truth into poison. Amoka's file was right there. They had faked dozens of scandals. None of it was real. And worst of all, there were thousands of files, activists, journalists, pastors, teachers, even students. Voices that could one day fight back, already marked for silence. Amoka copied everything. 3 secure drives. Encrypted. Time-stamped. Ready. But just as she reached to unplug the last one, the lights flickered. The door slammed shut. A voice filled the room. Slow. Cold. Familiar. Amoka. I warned you. Her blood ran cold. She turned toward the screen. A video feed lit up. It was the bishop. Alive. Smiling. Sitting in a golden chair somewhere dark. You think I would leave my kingdom so easily, he said. You think a few files would finish me? Zubairu stepped forward. We exposed you. He laughed. You exposed nothing. That was just one head of the beast. Now you found the brain. And guess what? You brought me the key. The door behind them burst open. Rita stepped in. Gun raised. Face blank. She wasn't helping them. She had led them into a trap. Fuller shouted through the earpiece, "Get out now. They're coming." But it was too late. Dozens of black-clad soldiers stormed in. Amoka threw the hard drives to Zubairu. "Run!" He grabbed them and darted through the vent they'd opened earlier. She turned back. A gun pressed to her head. Rita whispered in her ear, "I'm sorry. They have my family." Amoka closed her eyes. And smiled. Because even now, she had one more secret. She wasn't the only one recording. Zubairu's body cam had streamed everything. Even this moment. The betrayal. The bishop's face. The soldiers' guns. The world was watching. Again. But they didn't know what would happen next. Amoka was dragged into a black van. Bag over her head. Driven to a place unknown. No food. No light. No answers. And then. A voice. A woman's voice. Sharp. Elegant. Powerful. "You've made a lot of enemies, Miss Ikena. But you've also made an impression. We'd like to offer you a choice." The bag was removed. She sat in a white room. Clean. Cold. Across the table was a woman in a green suit. Her badge said, "African Council for National Strategy." "What choice?" Amoka asked. The woman smiled. "You can disappear quietly. Or you can work with us. Inside the system. Clean it. Change it. But on our terms." Amoka stared at her. Was this another trap? Or the only chance left to fight without dying? Her hands trembled under the table. Her mouth felt dry. But her voice was clear. "I'll join you," she said. "But on my terms." The woman's smile didn't fade. But her eyes narrowed. "Then welcome to the war behind the war." And just like that, Amoka was no longer just a fighter. She had become something else. Something more dangerous. A spy. A ghost. A weapon for justice, hidden in the belly of the beast. But as the door closed behind her, she whispered only one thing. "Zubairu, please be safe." The war behind the war had begun. Amoka was now inside the system. Every morning she wore the green uniform of the African Council for National Strategy. She sat in glass rooms. Attended meetings with powerful men and women. Spoke less. Watched more. And listened carefully. She wasn't there to belong. She was there to bring it all down from the inside. But playing their game meant losing parts of herself every day. To survive, she had to smile at the same kind of people who once haunted her. She had to pretend. Pretend to believe in what they stood for. Pretend to forget the names of the girls she once fought for. Pretend to be something she wasn't, again. Only Zubairu and Fola reminded her who she truly was. They had gone underground. Zubairu was hiding in Ethiopia with copies of the Phoenix archive. Fola had returned to Lagos and created a secret digital radio station, Voice of Ashes, spreading coded truths through music and poetry. But danger was still everywhere. The bishop was still alive. And now, he was rising again, not through violence, but through elections. He had rebranded himself. Now he was known as Chief Omekechi, the voice of the future. A hero to many. A liar to the rest. He was running for president of Nigeria. And people were buying it. All he needed was to erase a few truths, clear his digital past, and silence one last voice. Amoka. One night, she received a file. An anonymous message. They found Zubairu. He's being transported to a black site outside Sokoto. You have 48 hours. She froze. Her hands went cold. Fuller confirmed it. Zubairu had been captured. No warning. No resistance. He let them take him, to protect the drives. Amoka had two options now. Stay inside the council and keep working quietly. Or risk everything, power, position, her own life, to save him. It wasn't a hard decision. It never had been. She left that night. Took a council vehicle. Changed the plates. Went north. Every checkpoint was a risk. Every mile, a prayer. She disguised herself again, old clothes, worn slippers, wrapped hair, face lowered. But nothing could hide her fire. She reached Sokoto by dusk the next day. Found the facility. It was buried underground, hidden beneath an old radio tower. She climbed the fence. Knocked out the cameras. And then, like lightning, she broke in. 1 guard. 2. 3. Silenced. She found Zubairu chained in a cell. Bruised. Weak. But alive. Their eyes met. And something passed between them. No words. Just understanding. Just love. I told you I'd burn with purpose, he whispered. And I told you not to follow me, she said, smiling through tears. They escaped through the back gate, wounded, bleeding, laughing. But the alarm had been raised. Helicopters. Drones. Gunfire in the hills. They ran into the desert. No food. No map. Just stars. And hope. Days later, they resurfaced. Fuller met them in a secret safe house near Jos. The three of them stood together again, tired, scarred, but unbroken. And they had the final piece. Project Phoenix's true source code. But to release it, they had to go live. They had to speak to the people directly, not behind screens or whispers. So they hacked into the National Broadcast Network. During a live political debate, Chief Omekechi's final campaign event, the screen went black. And then Amoka appeared. In full. Face uncovered. Voice calm. Eyes fierce. She spoke for 15 minutes. She named every girl who disappeared. She revealed the bishop's true identity. She exposed Phoenix, line by line. And she ended with one sentence. I was not born a warrior. I became one because the world refused to protect us. But today, I am not afraid. I am not alone. And neither are you. Then the screen cut to black. Silence followed. Then chaos. Then fire. That night, riots broke out in 6 states. The election was postponed. The bishop went into hiding. The council fractured from within. Amoka became both haunted and worshipped. But she didn't wait for applause. She vanished again, this time with Zubairu by her side. Together, they returned to Popokos. To the house where her parents once lived. The roof was gone. The walls cracked. But they planted a tree there. A mango tree. Chisholm joined them a week later. He was taller now. Stronger. And when he hugged his sister, he whispered, "Thank you for not letting me die." She smiled. "I'd die before I let you go." Years later, they said Amoka disappeared into legend. Some say she joined an underground resistance. Others say she moved to Ghana, opened a school for girls, and never touched a screen again. But sometimes, late at night, a strange broadcast echoes through silent radios across Africa. A voice. Soft. Familiar. Saying, "The truth cannot be buried. Not forever. We are still here. We are still rising." And those who listen, they whisper the name with respect. with hope, with power. Amoka Chidiogo Ikena. The girl who walked through fire and never stopped burning.
Thanks for watching.